Welcome everybody to Integrate Yourself. I'm your host, Allison Pillow, and you can find me at Pure Energy PDX and finally thrivingbook.com. Today, I have my dear friend, Rosanne Grace on the show. She's back for probably about the fourth or fifth time. I haven't been counting, but yeah, we're going to be talking about some really good stuff right today. Some, as it relates to what's going on in the world, energetics. Really, I have some really interesting topics in mind to talk to Rosanne about today. So let's get started. You do some, I want to just say that I really love your, I call them, I guess I call them energy updates that you give on Instagram. And you just have, every time you share what you do, it always resonates with me. Cause I'm like, yeah. And it helps me read the energy of what's going on externally, because that's really what we are being guided to do more so of these days, I feel, is to not really pay attention so much to what you're seeing in front of you, but more what you're feeling, what the energy feels like. And so that's what the practice I've been taking on, and with your guidance as well, you've helped me so much with that. And so today, the topic, some of the topics I really wanted to touch upon that have been coming up are about false idols, which is a big deal in this day and age with all the influence that's happening and the confusion, because and I wanted to help people also differentiate between somebody who's a more authentic, and it's not saying that someone's a bad person necessarily. In my opinion, it's a false idol is someone who is not fully integrated in with what they're teaching people or telling people. And so I think it's really important for people to feel into that, to fully take responsibility for their energy and how they are showing up in the world and how they would like to show up. So that and so much more we can talk about as well as it relates to that and what's going on currently and how people can begin to create a relationship with their energy self in this day and age, because it's coming up.
Oh yeah,
it's really important to do. And things, I mean, I feel like we've talked about this before, and realities are changing so quickly,
so fast.
I mean, from minute to minute. I got back from Portland on this trip I went to in California, and I came back and it was like I was in a different reality. So many things changed, and I'm like, wow, I just jumped to a different timeline. So I'm starting to notice these things, even like little things like, just storefronts or different colors on things, and things look different. Like I didn't notice that before, and so when you really start to notice those differences, you can tell when your frequency changes, when you're jumping to that next timeline. And it gives you, to me, it gives me a more, I guess, comfort and support around the fact that I don't really have to look back to the past so much, and I don't need to look to the future so much either. It can be more of a feeling of getting comfortable with the now and how what frequency I am expressing in that moment. So I think that's what we'll also talk about today, is how people can do that. But
yes,
let's start though with the false idol idea, because you and I have talked about that before. And the reason I think it's so important is because ultimately we have to learn how to listen to ourselves and listen to our own inner guidance and connect with that. And one thing that has come up recently is divinity scarcity. And you and I have talked about that as well, how you're always externalizing your connection to source to other people. And so you look up to them as an idol, or like they know more than you do because they're connected and you're not. And that's just simply not true. We all have the ability to connect. It's just a matter of becoming aware of it. So can you share your insight on false idols and what that looks like for people, how they can identify that in their lives and all
definitely. Yes, absolutely. And by the way, Allison did not give me no script or nothing. That we always, freestyle these podcast, which I love. It's a lot more fun and a lot more entertaining. And it allows for that channel to come through and whatever is in the highest and greatest good to be presented. And yes, we have talked about this before, and it is twofold. So we will talk about both the ability to connect with those nuances of energy and what is of the light, what is false light, what is distorted, or as Allison said, like unintegrated. Like some people sharing this information, maybe their intention is good and even the information is, maybe of quality or it is of the light, and yet they're not integrated themselves. So it will come through a filter or a layer of, woundedness or righteousness or arrogance or, the limited self, I call it, not the master self. Your master self's your higher self, your highest aspects, your divine self, or your divinity, your source aspects. And so first, let's get into like defining what false idol is. And you're absolutely right. From the limited self, we've all been born and bred, recycled and reincarnated countless times into limited forms, not just human forms. I share with my clients. Limited self could be, let's see, one of my clients was a little sea turtle and was hatched on the shore and never got to live because it got poached right away. So that would be, even that echo from that lifetime is a limited aspect. And so the work that I do is to clear and to heal or to transmute any of those limited imprints or echoes, so we, as in our humanness, can experience our mastery. Because like Allison mentioned, the masters that we did experience, we idolized or we worshiped, but we never thought in our lowly humanness, oh, that could be me too. And yes, it is all us. We all have these gifts, we all have these abilities, but it is a false program that we've been operating off of for so many lifetimes that it just becomes our default setting, I say, or like our autopilot, and we just defer to that. And so it is a practice, in order to be able to discern, is this of the light that I'm receiving, or is this message coming through in, the highest frequency? You do have to do the work first, so that it goes hand in hand. And being able to trust those aspects of yourself to the point, and I remember for myself getting to that place where I didn't trust myself at all. I gave my trust away to, anyone and everything. And then fully integrating those divine aspects where is like, I only trust myself and I check on everything. It's like, is this of the light? Is this not of the light? Is this in my highest and greatest good? Is this in the highest and greatest good of all? And operating from that place, you are stepping into your mastery. And so and again, alongside that comes your discernment naturally. It's like, you just pick up on the energy. And Allison and I've talked about this before, the nuances of energy where you may not be able to tangibly see it, but you can feel it. You can feel it when you walk into a room and you're like, something funky happened here. Or you can feel it when you meet someone for the first time. You're like, getting shady vibes, or I'm getting really beautiful vibes from them. It's not something you can tangibly articulate, and yet feeling into it, that's why you have a physical body, to feel it. And yet part of limited self is also been programmed to not feel things. I don't want to feel that, or I don't want to know, or I don't want to see in the multidimensional. And the energies that are coming in are contributing to the activation of those alternate gifts or those extrasensory perceptions. And so embrace that. And if you want to experience more of that, then connect with your inner child, do some of the deeper healing to have master self aspects come in more gracefully. And they're all there. They're all ready for you. And your frequency dictates that allowance. But if you're operating at the limited self, you cannot be in your master self at the same time. I tell my clients it's one or the other. And so that's, again, our discernment. And so going into the false idols, like I said, especially on social media, you'll see it where people will share or want to be influencers or want to have that. And they'll even package the light, or be marketing the light. And yet the intention behind it isn't pure. It's not clean. Like Allison knows this about me. I don't promote what I do. It's like those people that show up are meant to see me or find me. And so I say my divine self is behind the scenes. She's the one making it happen. The limited self is the one that's like, I got to go out there. I got to get more followers. I got to get more likes or whatever it is. And that's not pure. That's not a pure intention. Doesn't mean, like Allison said, doesn't mean they're negative people, if they're bad. We'll get into that in a moment because there is some dark disguised as light, and
Yes.
they are clear about their intention, and they will that. Okay, let's not jump there yet. So because there is that factor too, and that's where your discernment is key, and that's what comes in. Otherwise, it is that wolf in sheep's clothing, and you can be fooled. We've all been tricked many times, and so
Right.
but again, it's also part of the design to refine you. Like Source has said to me, you know, you can't sharpen your tools, you have nothing to sharpen them on. So it's like, we'll bring you the opposite of the light, and it may be dressed up as light to see, are you going to be discerning? So
Testing it out a little.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like I knew what it was like to be tricked, and I've tricked myself many times, so I could have the awareness of, oh,
Right.
this is what alignment feels like, or this was what truth feels like, or this is what congruency feels like. So those that are maybe unintentional, it's like, well, I want to share the light, and they're posting things or reposting things. If their intention isn't clear, then it is going to come through that filter of distortion in some way. And so one of the things I tell my clients, if you're kind of new to this, and so you're drawn to this video, watch the video without sound, and just tune into the energy. Just practice that. That's an easy example. So you can start feeling into what is the energy behind the words, because there's always a story behind the story. So it's easy to get tricked by the words, or the beautiful outfit, or the garb, or the whatever it is, the packaging. And yet the true substance behind it, that's the intention. Is that intention pure? And I'm not sure if we've gone over this, Alice. I think we might have in one of your episodes. There's light workers that came from the light, and they're just dedicated to the light. Like, it's real hard for you to come in as a light worker and get thrown off that path. Yes, a lot of light workers, we get caught up in trying to numb out because it's too much as an empath to feel those things. And so we do hit those bumpy roads, and yet our path is really always guiding us towards light. Then you have those souls that come in, I call it just for self. Like, I'm here for the ride, like,
Yeah.
I want to enjoy my human experience. And it's not negative, it's not dark. And yet they could go into just, self-serving. I want to be a successful entrepreneur, or I want to experience this, that, or the other. That's fine. That's the human experience. And I know a lot of those souls that serve the light. And so they can still be light workers by that avenue, or they can go into, like, I'm so self-serving that I'm now serving, just for greed or control or consumption. That will veer them into the dark. So then that leaves the dark path. The dark path is like, I was born in the dark, hell or high water. I don't give a crap what comes my way. Like, that's my intention. And it's very rare, but I have seen those that were born into the dark really work to get into the light. And it's a much more challenging path, I will say, in my experience of those souls. It's not impossible, but it has to do with intention and consistency, just like all of us. Intention and consistency and belief is key. So going into those that are the dark disguised as the light, that's a whole nother category. That is for their own gain, but it's also, like I said, you can be of self, and it's like, well, I just want to make a lot of money, or I just want to have my name up in lights. And so I'll share whatever to get that. Doesn't matter if it's about, real estate, or if it's about light working. So that's that category. The other category, where it's the dark using the light as more trickery, that is to bring you into their energy so they can feed off of your energy too. And it's a control dynamic, but they are using the light for trickery. And we've talked about that too.
Yeah. And I've noticed with people like that it's almost like this, it's a circle. They bring you into this loop that just keeps going. And the energy feels like this, like there's no way out. You have to keep coming back to them.
Yeah.
for
It's not truly
answers.
healing. Yeah. It's like a
Yeah,
hook.
you're not
They
really
got
given
you.
like the skills to do it on your
Tentacles.
own. Yeah, yeah.
True. Yeah. I
Totally.
don't expect to see my clients forever. It's like I'm reminding you, like I'm
Mm,
not above you. I'm at the same,
right.
yeah, I'm right here with you. I went through all of it. I just am giving you quicker tools to integrate it to achieve your mastery faster. So you don't have to spend the years that I did. And that's my job. That's why I'm still here. And yet I was like, you got all the tools. You
Yeah.
don't have to, you want to call me to check in. That's great. But, and there's always more refinement, I say, because once you get into your source self, it's basically embodying source for the rest of your days. It's just a finer and finer attunement to that. Um, but yes, like it could be sexual energy, it could be monetary, it could be, it's still, everything is energy. So it's that cultivation of your energy or your time or your belief or whatever. And they're feeding off of that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It is kind of like a loop. Like you said, you're not free of that. And I'm seeing a lot more clients becoming more and more discerning in their awakening. And they're like, I just had a client earlier today, and she's like, I signed up for this course, and it could be in coursework, it could be in healing work, it could be in anything, any dynamic. And she's like, I was drawn to the work, and I signed up and immediately felt like the person behind this is not clean energy or is not
Mhm.
of the highest and greatest good. And they were right. They figured it out, but that was their discernment. And that's exactly why their master self allowed them. So, your master self, again, I say, is behind all of your initiations. Your higher self is bringing that awareness to you. But how can you be that aware if you don't have the distinction of that awareness? So, they brought my client this individual teaching this course that wasn't of the highest and greatest good. And they figured it out. And I said, that's where your discernment comes in. It's like not all teachings are of the light, and not all teachings
Right.
are negative. And so that's your discernment. It's like, oh, I like that piece, or that piece is relevant, or that piece is valuable. I don't need to hold on or participate with the rest. And that was part of her refinement of her mastery.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
Yeah, because some people can have a big following that are doing this, right? Yeah.
there are. There are quite a few that have a big following, and it's just like, and they're just like, what? And if you, again, if you take, take your human back a couple steps and you just look at what is it that they're really selling? What are they hawking? Some hack
Yeah.
now, or some supplement, or some something, but it's disguised for health and wellness, or it's disguised. And because you're in this world, there's a lot of garbage out there that's just packaged real pretty
Yes.
or marketed really well
Mhm.
because there's a lot of money behind it. And it's like, or it's not even theirs. Like there's teachers and gurus, and I'm like, that's not even their information. Like they've recycled that from this company or from this institute or from this teaching, and they just had more money to package it. And so now people are paying them thousands of dollars. And it's like,
Oh,
there's,
right.
not saying it's not still serving the highest and greatest good, because there is a little bit of that, because it's still bringing a bigger population to that awareness, and yet it's still not the higher levels of integration or the higher levels of mastery. They're still going to keep going to that person, like Allison said, over and over again, coughing up tons of money, when all you have to do is be with yourself and really tune in,
Mhm.
really get, and practice silence. I still to this day promote people getting into a float tank, because in a float tank, you're just, all the distractions are gone. You can really hear yourself. You can hear the parts that are still chattering. You can hear the parts that are still playing the loops and the what ifs, or shoulda, coulda, wouldas. And then you also hear the higher parts that are like, this is what we're showing you. This is what we're guiding you to. But when we're constantly distracted, we can't hear those parts. So how could we possibly discern? Which is why people get so shook left and right. And I went through a period of that many years ago, where I was like, I can't listen to anything. I didn't care if it was of the light. I didn't care if it was mainstream, none of it. I was so revolted with everything, that because I didn't know what was true.
Mm.
And I remember
Yeah.
I was living in Laguna at the time, and I went down to the beach, and I was just like huffing and puffing, like just so disgruntled with everything. And still, again, I had the concept like it's all an illusion, it's all outside. And yet I hadn't fully integrated inside. So I was still like resisting everything out there when it was in here. I needed to look. So I just plopped myself in the sand. I was like, fine. I'm like, what is it? Like, what is real? What is true? Like, what is it? And they said, it's you.
Mm,
and I
that's
heard it loud
beautiful.
and clear. And it was like, and I saw this big, like huge, like old, like castle wood door. And it had like this big latch in front of it, like representing my resistance. And the door just squeaked open like a little screen door. Like, it's never been locked. It's never been, we make it way harder than it needs to be. That barrier is all you. That resistance is all you. So I say resistance and attachment, they're two sides of the same coin, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the
Yeah.
limited self. I got to resist this, you know, I can't handle what they're doing or what they're saying, or I'm so attached, I can't be alone, or I can't live without this. It's like, both are the very, very deeply inbred into the limited self. Your master self, she limitless. She's not attached to nothing. She doesn't need identification. I say she's such a freaking master. She doesn't even need others to know she's a master. That's mastery. Like, she's not attached to
She
nothing.
just shows up. She just
She's
shows up.
already, yeah, it's already
Yeah.
there, but it's tuning into that, where most people, again, if you're still operating the limited self, that version of mastery, it's like, well, that's for the exalted ones or the holier than thou ones. That's not me. And it's like, no, it is all us. This is what we're really here to achieve, is that embodiment of our divinity and our and also our neutrality, because source is neutral. Source
Mm-hmm.
is like, death is beautiful, life is beautiful, tragedy is perfect, so is bliss. Like, it's an experience. But to get to that awareness, we have to go through these initiations. It's just too much to jump to that perspective or that awareness when you're still struggling and battling within parts of yourself.
Yeah, I love that so much. And that's what I've experienced too. And yeah, you just get to a point where it's not conditional anymore, anything that you experience, right? It's just
Yeah,
it's all like wonderful. Um, what can you explain to everyone I know what initiation means, but can you just go into that a little bit
sure.
more? Yeah.
Sure. I know, it's like speaking another language. And this is why I only
Yeah.
work with light workers, because I'm like, it is. Initiations would be like milestones in your spiritual growth. And it's really not so much growing, because if you understand that you already are that spiritual divine being having these human experiences, then it's more the shedding. The initiation
Mm,
would be more the shedding of the limited self, or more shedding of those attachments or programs or resistance or division. Because again, source is pure love, it's pure consciousness. It's like, everything's perfect, everything's neutral. The limited self is like, I don't like this. That's wrong. That's negative. That's bad. That's what we've been raised in countless times to, to discern, not even to discern, to label good, bad, right, or wrong. And source is like, no, it's all perfect. So we go through the initiations, or the integration is another way of putting it too, of actively choosing our mastery or our divinity versus actively participating with the limited self.
mm,
So when we experience resistance or attachment, boom, you're back in the limited self. That's
mm.
part of the illusion, and it owns you, and you will continue to cycle through it and perpetuate it. So you're actually keeping that illusion alive, like you're feeding it or fueling it, versus your master self keeps that perspective above the illusion, beyond the illusion, where it's like, I see everything playing out, and yet I don't have to participate with that. So do we see that already today? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I had a client that was like, I've had the best year ever. And I have clients that are like, this is the worst. Like,
Yeah.
so it's like, well, what's the difference? It's like,
Yeah. Good.
it's
Yeah. Good
perspective.
point.
It's like,
Exactly.
because like we were talking about different timelines, in, I feel like we should explain that too. Timelines are also like, it's almost like being another, higher dimensions or higher frequencies. And back in the day, I was naive. I didn't know what timelines were. I was like, oh, I'm just waiting for those higher timelines to show up. Like, come on, let's go. And source was like, no, all timelines exist, for Sam. Like,
Mhm.
your frequency matches you to that timeline. So do Allison and I have different timelines than most of the world? Yes. Was the past 2 years amazing? Yes.
Yes.
Like, I had beautiful experiences, amazing experience, very synchronistic experiences. And so that's another way to receive feedback. Like, is this easy and effortless and graceful? Then yes, you are maintaining that frequency, and you are directly experiencing those higher timelines, because they have to sync up with you. You are the creator, so you're dictating it. But if it's like, infinite timelines playing out concurrently, which it is, then I ask my clients, which one do you choose to participate with? Because the lower timelines are just as available as the higher timelines.
Yes.
It's not like, oh, I'm waiting for it. No, you are the one that dictates the timeline. Absolutely. Your frequency. Yeah.
It's the choice, it's like those books that you would read when you're little, where you could choose the direction you want to go in the book, right?
Yes. But it also comes down to belief too. So it's not just choice. Like I tell my clients, if you don't consciously believe it and feel that is a possibility or true for you, then it's just going to be a fantasy, and it's not going to stick. It's not going to manifest.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
If you're like, oh, but yes, I'm going to keep my vibration high, and yet there's a little part of your limited self that's like, ooh, what if shit falls apart? Like that is the subconscious, and that is actually going to dictate the timeline, not up here. That's why law of attraction, that works,
doesn't always work all the way.
Exactly. There's consequences to that, because most of us, and myself included, I did all that stuff back in the day. I'd have things manifest, but there was still that limited part in my subconscious that was like, oh, I hope this happens. And so, yes, I knew the law of attraction worked, and it would manifest, but then there'd be consequences, because that little fear aspect of me was still running the show until I integrated that and healed that part. Then it's like, I don't even have to manifest. Like, it's just taken care of for me.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, of course, this is what, her human wants to experience, living here or traveling here or doing this or that. And so I don't have to make it happen anymore. And that also goes into like the divine feminine and masculine, like we were talking about. The divine masculine is, a healthy leader, and the divine feminine is also a beautiful receiver. Like she's if you imagine like the queen on the throne, she's not out there hunting and gathering. Like she's like, yes, thank you, this or better. But we're not taught how to be receivers. We're taught how to be hunters, fighters, warriors. And it's like that paradigm's dying. That's the shadow side of the masculine. That's not the healthy integrated side. And so I'm seeing that across the board with male and female clients, like really stepping into their divine feminine and that union. So we can receive and also lead in a very healthy and graceful, effortless way.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. A lot of the old patterning is fading away, and whether you really believe what you and I are talking about or not, it's definitely, I think everybody can agree that everything's changing, the energy is changing big time. And so my take on it is just to step into it and enjoy it, because
Absolutely.
I feel like it's really, we're evolving to a place that we just didn't have access to before. And
Absolutely.
I'm so excited about sharpening my skills in this area, and just like just really being open. It really doesn't even come down to that. It's more so just being aligned and receiving a clear channel for this energy, really, when it comes down, as it come down to it. But it's really an incredible time. And it's a matter of like, it's so funny, because people, they, in the past had noticed people were really funny about talking about this stuff, and they call it woo woo and all that. And I'm just like, you know what though? It's a real thing. This is real. And we might as well just, look at it like that. And
I love it. I'm seeing more and more people becoming open to it, and the energies that are coming in, again, there's always an exchange. So yes, I mean, and if you want science, you could go to, what is it? Spaceweather.com. Like it's it's a science-based website, and it's showing you the energies coming into our field, into our planet. Well, we're part of that, you're going to receive it. And so even like with my own family, it's like, what's going on? I'm experiencing this, and they know, they kind of know what I do, but they don't, they're not totally into it, and that's fine. And yet they're even more receptive and more open,
Right.
and I'll give them tools or techniques, to help harmonize the energies. I'm not going to give them the whole backstory of what's going on. That's too overwhelming for most people. And yet energy is energy, and it's like, you don't have to be in a spiritualist to know when the energy feels off, or when your energy
Yeah.
feels off, or somebody else's energy feels off, and or your pet's energy. I mean, it's all feedback. And and so I was pleasantly surprised that they reached out and asked, what was going on, and asked my advice on how to manage it. And it worked great. And so they
Yeah.
utilized it, and it's like, yeah, there's more. It is becoming more mainstream, and the energies are not going to stop, so they're just going to keep coming in. And so I say, you can either get knocked over by it, or you can integrate it. And like you said, that I think you just said like the transistor or the receiver, and that's true. That is the physical. We're anchoring those energies here and embodying it. That's why we have this whole circuitry, this whole physiology, is to integrate and adapt. We're very adaptable beings, and yet we're primarily adapting to what's going on in here, what we're telling ourselves,
Yes.
the programs that are running on, loops over and over again. Or are you programming with the light? Are you programming with the higher consciousness? Are you still running off of those old broken records? And so I am seeing more and more people allowing, like you said, allow it, lean into it. It's not always comfortable. I say the density of the body is the densest part of our consciousness, because
Yeah.
everything is consciousness. So it's not just the physical body, everything around you is consciousness. But you have subtle bodies, energy bodies, multidimensional bodies, all of those. And they can integrate energy, obviously, much easier than the physical. So the physical may need more rest. It may feel more achy or itchy or tickly or zappy. Like I've gotten all
Yeah.
of that in the past couple of weeks. And I'm
Yes.
like, okay, got it. But it's also working on a deeper level to integrate, so you are the vessel that can hold more of those energies, so you don't get thrown off balance. It's kind of like building your strength and preparing you for, like what Allison was saying, like that bigger energy shift. So we're getting
Mhm.
all these rapid energy shifts to be able to integrate a bigger energy shift that's coming. And we already see, on the human stage or the global stage, the distinctions of those that are living in harmony, or at least more harmoniously with themselves or with their environment, and those that are still operating out of old programs or fear paradigms and all of that. And that will become more and more distinct. Some will shift, and some will maintain the status quo, and that's fine too. But this is available to everybody. This is consciousness. This is beyond our humanness. We're all consciousness.
Right.
There's nothing that's not consciousness. And that is the ultimate truth. We're playing this role as human, or Allison and Rosanne this time around. We've played many roles many times. And it's getting to that fundamental truth that it's all consciousness. So there is no separation. There is no good, bad, right, or wrong. And being willing to let go of those old stories that have been with us for lifetimes, so we can truly experience our pure conscious states.
Yes. Yes. What do you see? What's your take on what we're experiencing? You just did a post on Instagram talking about this, but would you like to share what you're feeling coming up for people right now? What it energetically is to be focused on or to shift for people?
Yes, thank you. And I was kind of alluding to that when I was talking
Mm-hmm.
about the timeline shifting. And so again, what I've received for the past since last year, this April 10th to 12th conjunction. It's a Jupiter Neptune conjunction. I'm not real proficient in astrology, and yet I'll receive the information, and then it'll usually follow with, some conjunction or some equinox or something going on. Um, such as this case. And so when I asked Source about it, they said, the veil will be lifting, but it'll also feel like the floor is dropping for some.
Mm.
And that is the timelines that we've already chosen, the timelines that we're currently participating with. Again, if you're still operating out of that fear and that resistance or that attachment, it may feel a little more desperate. It may feel a little more heightened. I'm going to say most likely yes. And then, so I asked, well, what about those of us that don't operate out of those fear programs? So, and Source said that energy is going to feel like elation or elevation, freedom and glory. Like it is a whole new opening. And I said, well, what's going to be, can I share that? Yes. Okay. What's just checking. So I never know. I'm like, is that too much? Is that too much? I love it. You've seen that in me. Sorry.
Yeah.
So I asked, so what will be the kind of like the catalyst for that at that time to create, you know, those responses or those distinctions. And Source said, I asked, is it going to be more global? Is it going to be more earth event, cosmic event? Is it going to be, you know, my clients and I have been receiving like UFO stuff. I'm like, is it more UFOs? Is it disclosure? And they said a little bit of everything.
Wow.
And we're already seeing that with, you know, like the solar flares and the coronal mass ejections. Like I just heard that there was 2 major earthquakes in Australia and the South Pacific, I think this morning. So again,
wow.
everything is being affected by this energy, but there's always an exchange, as Source said. So those energies coming in are because we're raising our collective frequency. And so it's like, we're also calling it in. So it's not like, oh, just something happening to us. It's like, no, we are actively participating with this because it's time. And that's why we're here. We're here to end those karmic cycles and those loops and the time wheel and all of that. It's like we went so far off base into the suffering, into the density of the 3D that we forgot our divinity. And so, like you said, that's that divinity scarcity. It's like that, you know, if there is, and we're so jaded too as humans, like if there is something, why would they have let that happen? It's like, this is part of the dismantling or the dissolving of the limited self. And we do it with ease and grace. I say, it's not like we just, you know, we're shaming those parts of ourselves. That's, you know, that's all we knew. That's how we survived. That was necessary for our identification or for our validation or for just our functionality as humans on this planet. And yet this is the new human. This is the evolved human. This is the divine human. And that's why they called it the golden age. It's like we're stepping out of the density and taking those layers and those programs off. And again, we are part of the illusion. We are in it. It's in us. So how do you you know, dismantle what you see around you on the global stage? Well, you have to start here. It has to always be within.
Yeah.
Because then it doesn't show up. It's like those things don't show up in my world. Does it show up in other people's worlds? Yes, there's almost 8 billion illusions playing out on this planet. So yeah, you better believe that those illusions or those, you know, perspectives are creating those illusions for their reality to play out. Doesn't make it wrong, doesn't make it bad, doesn't make it any less valuable. It's just that version of Source playing that version. Yeah. And my version plays a completely different version.
Yeah. And it's so true. There can be so many different realities. There are so many different realities just playing out at once. And like you said, that can be easily demonstrated by just talking to people having completely different experiences of the same thing. We can find that in a family, you know, like 2 siblings have completely different experiences of their family life together.
100%.
Yeah.
I remember that with my own family, my siblings, and we argued like, no, that didn't happen. Yes, it did. No, it didn't. Yeah, it's through the lens of the one perceiving that creates the reality. When they say you are the creator of your reality, like it's not a joke. It's real. It's like half empty, half full. It's like
Yeah.
My cup's always abundant. What do you mean? Like, I don't even see that. But I used to, you better believe it. And that's the only reason I can teach what I teach now, is because I had to go through every one of those lessons. I had to go through every one of those compromises, and I had to learn the consequences of what maintaining that illusion was. And it
Yeah.
sucks. And until you know a better way, you just think that's the only way and you continue. And so we're here sharing whatever bits you may receive today to let you know there is a better way, and that it's so much
Yeah.
easier and so much more graceful and so much more fun. But it requires the perspective to shift. Your perception
Yeah.
has to shift in order for you to experience that, not the other way around. And we're taught the other way. We're like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
show me first and then I'll believe it. It's
Yeah.
like,
The
no,
prove and
you get to,
defend
yes,
mode,
yeah,
right?
totally. That's totally the limited self versus the master self. It's like, you just trust and I'll show you. And that's it. And I'm like, okay, show me.
Yeah.
Wow, there we go. And sure enough, things I didn't even have to ask for, Allison, just show up.
This is so, yeah, it's funny because I used to think that way too. And yeah, because we've been trained to think that way. And uh, you, you get into such a mode of proving and defending, and then you're like, and then you hear, like going back to something you said about like a spirit, you hear a spiritual teaching, like, you are creating your reality, your perception creates your reality. Well, if you just hold that as a thought and you don't integrate it or experience it, you'll never really know how it works. You
Totally.
got to test it out. um
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, it's so funny when I, when I wrote the book, it was I've been getting amazing feedback because I'm, the way I'm perceiving it is just, I'm giving it as a gift to people. This is a gift that I've created and I'm giving it to you
Yeah.
unconditionally. It's just really out of love. I got a little bit of feedback from one. It was a really good review. It was like some company that reviews books or something. I just thought this was hilarious that they put something on there like, well, this isn't going to sway skeptics, but I'm just thinking to myself, I'm not trying to sway skeptics.
Totally. And
Like,
that's what
at
I
what
mean.
point
Like,
did I say that? This is
exactly.
giving your own experience. Like, what does that have to do with anything? It's hilarious. Like,
Absolutely. But
if you
that's
want
the
to,
limited lens
yeah.
that they would even say that. Yeah.
Well, and I think what came to me was like, if, because, and this is a whole thing about the book, and like, I think moving forward, because I've noticed in myself in the past and like talking to other people that we're just so afraid to share our gifts because we think we have to prove and defend our gifts.
Yeah.
And, you don't have to provide all of the research to back up what you're sharing. Like, people can go do that on their own if they're really curious about it.
Sure.
Like, that's their responsibility. I'm just giving you my experience of things and sharing that, and you do with it what you'd
Absolutely.
like. So it's like, if we
Totally.
can start to just think, okay, if you want it, if you're the type of person that loves doing that and loves providing research, then go do that, because we do need those people too. But it's like, where do you fit? What would you
Yeah.
like to be doing is really what it comes down to,
Absolutely.
and
Absolutely. I totally agree with that because, and you and I have talked about this, like when you first started transitioning your podcast into bringing in more of, the spiritual or the intuitive and stuff. And, and I can share this knowing Allison personally and reading her book, like that information is mostly channeled, and the intention was like a gift, like this is part of my offering and this is what I'm doing. So there is no intention, like we are talking about those that use the light for their own intent or self-serving. It's like, no, this was just part of, like, we call it our medicine. Like, my medicine is my medicine and this is
yeah,
how I deliver it, and this is, whoever's guided to work with me or whoever's guided to read the book, those are the ones that are meant to receive it. And we're not here trying to sell something. We're not here trying to persuade you or enroll you. And I see that too. Like, I was invited to this meditation thing, and usually I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm already checking in every day. So, but I was, something said to go, and I was like, this is kind of boring. What is this? But it was about it was the speaker speaking of enlightenment. And I realized that it was like recruiting, because I've gotten like
oh,
multiple calls, like, do you want to join? And I'm like, I
it's like
see
a
it. So
cult.
again, It's just,
kind of.
it's more like you need us, like, to be enlightened. And I
Oh,
was like,
yeah.
no, don't fall for this, people. Like, no, you haven't. And again, if there's a group that really speaks of that, and I'm not saying that they don't, and it is helping at a certain level, but you don't necessarily need that.
Right.
Like, go within, and those parts of you that doubt or question or fear or resist, those are the parts that need your love and attention first and foremost, before you even participating in that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because you will get sideswiped, you will get compromised, you will get, false leaders or gurus or whoever. And it's like,
Yeah.
I even had a client years ago in a hypnosis session, and they had been following this guru for a number of years, and they came to me wondering, like, is this still in the highest and greatest good? Like, I'm cleaning their house and I'm tending to their garden. She's like, and my house is a mess. Like,
Oh,
and I could
right.
hear Source behind, like, I hear on this side, I could hear Source like laughing already. And I was like, I'm not saying nothing. I'm just going to take her into hypnosis and let's see what happens. And I'll let Source say it. And Source in the session said, through my client, um, if that's the vessel or the vehicle that you can hear us through, that's fine.
Yeah.
Please remember, he's still a man. He's still a human. He's still got his stuff.
Right.
And if you choose to connect, you can connect in any way you choose. But remember, source consciousness is in everything. You could talk to a rock, you could talk to the air, you could talk to a tree. Like,
Right.
again,
Right.
it's all available. There's nothing, you don't have to go to somebody or through something. And yet there are beautiful teachers. And like I said, the work I
Right.
do is just reminding, it's more bringing the client into the remembrance that they are their own divine selves. Like, there's nothing outside of them that they don't know. And I give them the tools. So it's like, no, you're only checking in with you. We have plenty of guides and guardians and, other energies we can tap into. And yet I was like, no, this is so your human can you showcase into your human just how masterful you are. And so
Yeah.
it's all available to you. It's just, again, it's your willingness, it's your belief, and it's your consistency.
Yeah. Sometimes people need stepping stones to get there. Right. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And also I've noticed too, it's really interesting. I used, when I was more naive about this stuff, I used to think that all these, like, if you're a guru or if you're a teacher, a big teacher like that, you have done your work. And a lot of times I've
I did
found
too.
that's not the case. Like, a lot of it's interestingly enough, when I started doing more of the inner child work with you, which is like, as you've described in the past, it's a representation of your subconscious, our inner children. And many of these people that are in these positions haven't actually connected with their inner child. And
Yeah.
so if you're learning from somebody who hasn't done that kind of work yet, then you are probably going to you're going to not be steered in that direction, and ultimately
Yeah.
that is the way. They're going to show you the way.
Absolutely. Your inner child is the way. I say they've known the way, they are the way. Follow them, let them lead until they bring your master self in. But you're absolutely right. And I fell for the same thing again. When we're naive and young, we don't know what we don't know. And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go. I saw this guru, this teacher, this trainer, whoever, and I was like, huh. And I just saw ego.
Yeah.
Or they would hit on me or what, because
Yeah.
they could read my energy. So they had gifts. It wasn't that they were void of gifts. They weren't faking that part. But like Allison said, it all comes down to integration. I mean, that's why her podcast is called Integrate Yourself. Like, there's a reason, because otherwise it's just beautiful
Hmm.
theories, or you're just
Yes.
regurgitating something. And I see that there's plenty of people, and I've had clients in the past that they just want to bypass that part, and I just want to get into the good stuff. I just want to get into my power and my gifts. It's like they are the foundation of that. And
Hmm.
it's like, no, like, do you think that you're going to have integrity with those gifts if you haven't liberated those parts? No,
Right.
because there's going to be, and we've seen that in teachers and gurus and stuff. There's a lot of ego. There's a lot of righteousness or arrogance because that part hasn't been healed yet. So there's still the proving and defending. There's still the better than, less than. It's like, no, your master self is, again, beyond all of that. They don't need to compete and compare anymore.
Right.
They're not attached.
Yeah.
So those are distinctions. Those are very clear distinctions. Again, as you're growing stronger in your own mastery, being discerning in what you're listening to, who you're listening to, what you're following, and checking in with your inner child. And anybody can do this. Like at the very beginning, I would just see my inner child before I knew how to channel and muscle test and all that stuff. I would just picture her, and I'd get a solid yes or I'd get a no. And if you can't visualize yet, feel into your body. That's why you have a body.
Yeah.
Does it feel icky in your body? Like, I'm just going to make this as remedial as possible. Does it feel icky or does it feel good? Do you feel tight and constricted, or do you feel light and expansive? Because your body can't lie, just like your inner child can't lie, or your master self or divine self. So that's why I direct my clients to start there, because that starts strengthening the channel, and then your natural gifts become more prominent to your clairaudience, your clairvoyance, your clairsentience. But there is that part of the ego, and it's still, it can show up in the spiritual ego too. It's like, well, I want this. And I've seen clients hijacked hardcore because they didn't want to do the work. Right. And if they had maintained working with me, they would know. But they were like, nope, I want to do it this way. I'm like, you'll learn the consequences.
Yeah. A good example of that is plant medicine.
Yeah, I get a lot of that,
people like to bypass,
hijacked, and then they call me to remove things from them.
Yeah. Entities. Right. Yeah. So that's what I've been seeing a lot lately, of a lot of light workers that are younger who are going straight to the plant medicine, which it's really exciting and it's very opening, yet they're not really building the skill of clearing or doing the deeper inner work, like you're saying sometimes. And just thinking the plant medicine is going to take care of it, and they're going to
the
get all
integration.
the messages.
And again, it's all comes down to that word, integration, integration. Because I love plant medicine. I think it's beautiful and it's an amazing gift. And yet you're right. The real work is the integration work. That's the ride. That's the big reveal. But it's like, well, what do I do with this now? And most people don't know what to do with this. Or like you said, there's other elements that show up in that space. It could be a dark entity or attachment or something else that they have no idea has been now attached to them. And they're having these other experiences that aren't serving them in the highest and greatest good. And yet even some of those people, and I don't, these aren't necessarily clients of mine, but referrals. And I'm like, yes, I can help you clear that. I can teach you how to clear it, blah, blah, blah. And if there's too much of a density on them, the density will take over and be like, oh no, I'm afraid of Rosanne, or I can't talk to Rosanne, because they will actually interrupt. So yeah, if people knew how much energy was around them at all times, and that it's really actually not that hard to master the energy around you.
It's not.
But again, if you don't know what you're doing, and you don't believe in yourself, I say belief, intent, presence, and empowerment. If one of those are missing, then you're not going to be as an effective coach, practitioner, clearer, whatever channel.
Yeah.
That's for any modality, really.
Yeah. That's wonderful to hear. Yeah. I've noticed that too with people, and it's, I think it's the missing. It's so funny how we want to make it so complex all the time. And
I know.
And it's just like
harder than it needs to be.
Way harder than it needs to be. And it's the answer's like right here. Like sometimes, like it's I had my 5-year-old speak out to me first, and it was amazing. She really woke me up to like what was going on, and got me to listen. And I was like, wow, like you are so powerful. I bow to you because you're amazing. And I remember the feeling of being that age and just being so uninhibited. And somewhere along the line, I
shut it down.
Yeah. And I think it's so powerful for people to, depending, I know there's pain for people, for some people in their childhood, and it's sometimes it's hard to feel that pain. And at the same time, we also have parts of our childhood that where we felt pure joy, and we really could connect to those parts and feel that again. It's that innocence that we lost when we were
Yeah,
younger, and we can always get back. We can always
absolutely.
reconnect with that childhood innocence where you're curious and you're just doing
Yes.
things out of joy and
Yes.
play and all of that, you know?
And that's when things really fall in alignment, I see for my clients, and when they started falling in alignment for me. And I say your inner child will hold your gifts hostage or hold that peace or that happiness until they get liberated. And so that is always a beautiful place to begin. And just like Allison said, like that reverence, bowing to her. And yes, we all have had some kind of trauma or um, interruption or event throughout our childhoods. And what I love about the inner child, and that's what's different about the inner child work that I do, because the inner child taught me how to do this work, not a teacher, not
Yeah,
somebody
yours is
else.
unique. Yes.
Yeah, because they're like, I don't need to revisit the trauma. Like, we already lived that. We're not going back there. Like,
Right.
we're actually completely rewriting these stories. And yet the limited self will be like, well, who am I without my story? I already start teaching my clients, like, do you choose your inner child? Because the limited self, like I said, a much longer program. It's been playing for lifetimes. So it's like, start here, choose them first.
Yeah.
Then it's much easier to integrate and choose that place of mastery, or that embodiment of your master self. But we can't jump the gun. We can't spiritually bypass them. It has to be them first, because otherwise they'll rear their heads and create some drama and some implosion to get your attention. And again, we don't need to be hit on the head. We don't need
No.
to be interrupted so massively anymore, unless you do, like I did. And so again, all results end up in the same arena eventually, and yet it can be so much more graceful. And so actively participating with them and listening to them and letting them lead the way, because they are the way. They are your intuition. They know what they need and they know what they want. But being mindful, they don't need you to revisit or think or dwell upon the trauma. All you have to do is say, I apologize for allowing you to carry that burden far too long. I
Mm.
got you. Like, I'm here now. Like, they are so, like you said, we make it way harder than we need to. They taught me how simple they are. They taught me how simple this work could really be. But it
Yeah.
has to be authentic. You have to authentically connect with them. You're not trying to outthink them. You're trying to connect energetically, emotionally, authentically, and vulnerably, so they can feel that your words or your feelings are true, and they liberate like that.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then they'll introduce your master self and those higher
Speaking of
aspects.
speaking of kids, hold on just 1 second. My kid just came to the, oh no, he's going around. Okay.
Speaking of inner
He's not a
children,
kid anymore, but
no, he's
um
huge.
yeah, he's bulking and big now. Yeah, okay. So, oh my God, thank you so much, Rosanne. This has been an incredible conversation. I
Always.
always love
Thank you.
talking to you and having you as a guest on my show.
Thank you,
Um,
Andy.
please, please share with everybody where they can find you, how they can book a session with you, what you're offering, and all of that.
Sure. You can go to my website at rosannegrace.com. I do not share unless the divine guides me to share, I say. So, but the best place to receive those sharings or offerings would be on Instagram. That's just the most convenient for me. And so that's at rosanne.grace. So Instagram.com/rosanne.grace. Um, I do offer inner child work, light worker activations and clearings. If you are experiencing some funky interference, that's more that calling. Um, soul activation hypnosis, which is, again, I work with light workers that are already on this path, because activation hypnosis is different than like healing hypnosis. It is more integrative. It's multidimensional, but it's also bringing more congruency or optimization, I say, with your higher aspects into this now. And any relevant lessons or themes or guidance from your source self comes through those sessions. And I always ask for the highest and greatest good to be served. So whatever is supposed to come through. Sometimes initiations happen in that session and their
Right.
clients are already moving into the next stage of awareness. And I also have an evolution package which combines all of that. And so I usually do not recommend starting with a hypnosis session, the soul activation
Yeah.
hypnosis. You want to get any healing and clearing done first. So
Yeah.
always start with an inner child, please. It's always recommended. And again, your inner child allows you more access. But if you're like, nope, don't want to talk to them, I have literally seen them block a client from doing a hypnosis session. Like, not going to give you nothing. They just be blank.
Wow.
Oh yeah. So they're very powerful, very, very powerful.
What would you, you're recommending, yes, that's a good recommendation to do the hypnosis after you've done the inner clearing and the inner work, because it
Yes.
can be, I've done hypnosis with you before, and it can be very much an out of body experience. It was literally an out of body experience. And, yeah, it's so valuable to integrate those other lifetimes into the lifetime you're currently in, so that you're not playing out those patterns still that are not serving
Totally.
you. Yeah.
You got it. Yeah. So much
Yeah.
comes through these sessions. And again, your inner child or your master self or your divine aspects are the ones truly leading the session. It's not me. I literally just channel whatever
Uh,
needs to come through for that. And so it's pretty simple. Once you get their languaging down, it's
yeah.
beautiful and it's much more graceful. Like, I had to learn the hard way to teach the easy way. I say, had to learn. Source said you
Yeah.
needed to know what disgrace was so you could learn grace. I'm like, thanks. Yeah, that's why it's my name. It's on my birth certificate.
Yes.
So it's been beautiful. And so yeah, I'm excited for these upcoming energies and these bigger shifts. Like, some of us have been feeling like we're in a holding pattern, waiting. And Source did say that is to get more people on board, because there is going to be such an energetic shift that it's going to be harder to choose after that point. So
Oh, I
there's a
see.
reason for
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So around in April, you were saying for that, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you are, I don't know if you want to mention that you're offering a certification as well, but I know you're
Oh,
inviting people to
yes.
that, but
Yes.
yeah.
So I have my current training group to become an ascension practitioner. So I'm training clients. I was guided this year to train clients to do the work that I do. And so the first training was in February. So that group goes through 3 separate trainings through June. So the next offering would be in July. So the end of July. I believe it's the last week of July. Yes. And those dates for the rest of the year for the whole next training series under training on my website at rosannegrace.com to become an ascension practitioner.
Which I'll
So
be
yes.
there. Yeah. For the
Yes, you can
July.
meet Allison in person, meet myself in person. They are held here live in Sedona. If you are unavailable to travel or be in person, I do have international clients and clients out of the area that were able to live stream via
Oh,
Zoom
cool.
during the session. So it was totally fine. It comes with
Yeah.
workbooks, tutorials, everything, scripts, all of it. So it's
Amazing.
exciting. Yay.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Rosanne.
Thank you, sweetheart. My pleasure
Yeah.
always. I love being with
I
you.
love you
Thank you.
too. All right.